feel like I'm holding my breath. Hello, everyone. Welcome to More Than Magic. I am very excited. We have a really special guest today. But first, I want to let you know that More Than Magic is hosted at the VodPod Media Studios on the east side of San Antonio. We are very proud to have a studio full of wonderful Black and brown content makers. Our producer is Gylan Jackson. He didn't tell me to say that, but I threw it in, just so y'all can have that. And we're going to go ahead and get started. Our guest today is Dr. Shantana, also known as Shay Robinson. And many know her as Dr. Bridgebuilder. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I'm excited. So, yes.
Well, and I know you drove, you live really far out, and I didn't realize that.
I do. Yeah, we live out by SeaWorld. So, and we've been there for, it's almost 17 years. Back when it was just like two roads.
Yeah.
One way each way. Now it's just 151 Petrenko area is just crazy with traffic and the build out. It's gorgeous to see, but property taxes are no lie.
Yeah. No, every time someone that tells me they live over there, I'm like, ooh, okay. So I don't visit that area very often. I need to work on that. Yes. But so one of our traditions, and I'm saying traditions, our show's less than a year old, but I ask every guest what the meaning of their name is and what the symbolism of their name is, how they came to have that name. You're the first person I've ever met with the name Shantana. So let's start there.
I love it.
Where does that name come from?
So my full name, Shantana Latricia Robinson. I'm a country girl at heart. I actually was named by one of my aunts on my dad's side. It's kind of like a combination, as strange as it sounds, but it translates to some type of African princess. That's where the name originated from. She literally, from my understanding, they were looking for names. She looked in a book, and there was a story about this African princess. And she happened to have this name, and it translates something with like earth in it, and then princess, and they stuck with it. But there is another Shantana out there. So hello to you if you're watching.
Oh, hey girl.
And it's actually a guy.
Oh, hey guy.
I found that out by accident. When I was in high school, I never will forget this. I was in high school standing in the lunch line. Shout out to all of my Breckenridge people out there. Class of I'm not going to say. But we was in the lunch line, and this lady, one of the lunch ladies, was like, Shantana, I got your lunch money for you. And I'm like, who is this lady? And why is she telling me she has lunch money? And I walked over, and the same time I did, a Hispanic guy walked up at the same time, and she looked at me, and I'm like, were you talking to him? And he's like, I'm Shantana. Who are you? Who are you?
Really?
And we actually were at the same school. The only difference is I spell my name Shantana, and he actually has two N's at the end of his, with an Nye over one of the N's.
Right.
But other than that, the name is literally pronounced identical. So I love it. He's the only one I've ever met. So
maybe he's watching, or maybe he'll watch one day and he can message and say, this is how I got my name. That's interesting.
I love it. Yep.
Well, okay, so names are so important. They're so very, very important. And I really we're going to talk about what you do in a moment, but I love that you are also known as Dr. Bridgebuilder.
Yes.
And when I hear Dr. Bridgebuilder, and then now that I know the meaning of your name, I hear Earth Princess. That is so who you are.
Thank you.
You are very much in tune with the earth and your surroundings
and crazy enough,
and nature.
Yes, and I'm a Capricorn, so I'm up under the earth sign on top of that. Kind of just all ties in together. But yeah, so Shantana.
Yeah.
And go, I'm sorry.
No, you first. Because, when black women talk, it's like double Dutch. So you just get in.
Hey, hop in when you can.
So you first.
I was just going to say the bridge builder component of it actually came just out of the blue when someone was having a conversation with me about, being so passionate about connecting people, connecting dots, connecting resources. They were like, you're literally, not just a plug, but you're building bridges for people in the long run. And so I literally took that name and just ran with it. It went from just Miss Bridgebuilder to Dr. Bridgebuilder. Right. And I love it.
Well, and so I'm going to give you an opportunity to give me a loving correction, because I made a flyer for this show and we had a little bit of a snafu, and I put that you had a master's in education. That is incorrect. So please give our viewers your actual degrees, because you have several. And then we can just kind of talk about how that transfers or informs your business and the work that you do on a daily basis.
Sure. And I completely understand. Like I tell people,
I was like, oh,
alphabet soup. That's what I like to call it, alphabet soup. But my master's is actually a master's of science in business management. And then I have my doctorate in business administration. And then there's like a CHEP at the end of it, which is certified higher education professional, because I also work on college campuses, and their master's program is alphabet soup.
right.
Look, this is what it
But
comes
it's
down
alphabet
to.
soup that you had to work really
Yes,
hard
ma'am.
for.
Yes, ma'am.
So, what was that process like? Because, according to so many studies, Black women are the most educated group here in the United States and the fastest growing group of entrepreneurs as well.
Yes.
But that doesn't mean that there aren't barriers.
Oh, yes.
And that doesn't mean that it's not difficult and there aren't hardships. So what was that whole process for you, and how did you decide you wanted to go from, undergrad to I'm going to have a doctorate one day? Like, did you decide that at the beginning, or?
No. And as crazy as it sounds, I actually was having this conversation with Mr. Wonderful about 2 weeks ago. We was just randomly talking about, I don't even remember what it was, but the discussion came up about college. And I was telling him, oddly enough, when I was in high school, I knew I wanted to do something, but I actually was studying to be a cosmetologist. So actually going to a traditional four-year institution really wasn't on my radar at that time, because I was trying to finish up cosmetology school. I was an honors student working on my actual licenses for the second half of the day, because by the time I hit the 10th grade, all of my classes were done. I was already in the Gifted and Talented program. And so when I finally decided that I actually wanted to get some credentials tied into running my own shop, business was the route that I decided to take. Business and fashion. So my bachelor's is actually a dual. It's in fashion and in business, which is even stranger. Spent time with Target, for those of y'all that are familiar with Target.
Target.
Yay! The sister store was Mervyn's, right? So I actually,
that's right.
Yes. So I actually, one of my first, as I like to say, the first big career was tied to Mervyn's. Literally, the location over at Brody Oaks in Austin, came back here to San Antonio, ended up doing recruitment for them, ended up over at HomeGoods TJ Maxx doing allocations, went out to Arizona, came back to help them grand open their large stores here. It's been interesting, to say the least. I decided to go back and get my master's because I realized that love the fashion component, love the business, but wanted to get more involved with the business because everybody was like, I got my MBA type of deal. And I'm the type of person, I don't do stuff because I want to be like everybody else. I do it because I want to do it myself, right?
Absolutely.
And it's a personal journey. Everybody's journey is their own. So I don't do it for the gram or for Facebook or anything else. It's just, is this something that I decide to do? And so I wanted to go back and get my master's, but I wanted to be very specific about the master's that I received. So I wanted to be in something that wasn't just about business, but the overall science behind it. And as crazy as it sounds, there actually is a master's of science in business that ties it all together. And I love that journey. It wasn't too crazy, to put it lightly, for the master's. I just love the research component. But when I decided to go back and get my doctorate, that was a whole different animal in itself, because there was at least a 12-year gap, because I started my master's in 05, finished it in 07, and then started my doctorate in like 2016. So yeah, I took some time off, and which was great because I always like to, research, make sure you are actually on the correct path. And at one point, I wasn't even for sure that I wanted to get my doctorate. After I got my master's, I thought I was done. But I realized just through the process, particularly dealing with SWMBs, your small minority women, veteran LGBTQ firms, there were still a lot of questions, or as I like to say, gaps that needed to be answered. And the easiest way for me to be able to answer those questions was to literally dive deep. And I'm like, if I'm already doing the research, might as well go ahead and get a doctorate in it. And that's exactly what I did. And my doctorate was actually all based around female, particularly African-American female business owners here in Bexar County and all of their factors to success. the barriers that you spoke of, yes, they're huge, and not just on the entrepreneur side, but also when we talk about the doctorate journey. With my program, the beauty of it is that it was completely online. I'm an online learner, love it. I'm not the type of person where I need to literally sit in a classroom.
Right.
I'm a busy
You're an
woman.
autodidact.
Yeah, and a lot of them have residences that's attached to them as well. And so with me, after doing my research, I found one that literally worked for me, but the program was just as rigorous, which is what a lot of people think. They're like, oh, well, if it's online.
There's this misconception like, you didn't work as hard, and that is not true.
Let me tell you, it is. If in some cases it actually is probably neck and neck with the research. You got to take comps exams just like any other. Go before IRB, same exact process. The difference that I will say that journey taught me was that time management is something that you definitely have to get used to. You also have to give yourself grace. My doctorate was like 180 pages when it was all said and done, and it took me probably a good 4.5, 5 years with all of my research. So I wasn't trying to run and rush through the process. And I also tell people on a regular basis, just because somebody else has all of the alphabet soup, make sure that you go within your own wheelhouse, not just because you want to say, well, she has it, so I want it too. And that's something that I definitely stick to.
But you said something that is so important. You said give yourself grace.
Yes.
And I think a lot of us are learning how to do that because historically we have not necessarily been afforded that.
Very
historically, in our communities, a lot of times it's just like go, 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 get everything done until you fall out and die.
Yeah.
And that is not what grace is.
Not at all.
So how did you, I mean, it's one thing to think about giving yourself grace in theory, and then there's practicum. What did you do along your journey to give yourself that space to breathe and let yourself know it's okay? I don't have to do this in 2 years. Exactly. Because there are people that think that, like, I have to go into this process and knock it out, and that's very stressful.
It is, and oddly enough, I'm one of those individuals that I don't necessarily have like a checklist for life. I know this sounds strange, but that's what I call it, where like, by the time I get out of undergrad, I have to be married, I have to have kids, I have to have a house, I got to get a dog, all of this by 30. I never was one of those individuals. Nothing wrong with that, but that just wasn't me. And I think the same thing is true when it comes to the education component, because I am such a person to want to have knowledge. I didn't see it as something that had like a finish line that I had to have a definitive date to get to, because the process was so important, and the information that I was gathering and forming like a Facebook group that has over 800, African-American businesses in it, and utilizing the information that I was getting out of that group to actually sustain and support the doctorate. And then also having a village, right? So not just having a great Mr. Wonderful, as I call him, at the house, loving parents, fabulous sorority sisters, shout out Sigma Gamma Rho sorority, all of my sorors out there, but also having a really good doctorate team. So, your readers, your editors that are behind you, cheering you on. When I originally got started, I had one chair. She was great. And then all of a sudden, everybody else realized how great she was, and she started doing lectures and started traveling. And it was probably 6-7 months, and I could not track her down. So that's definitely something I will tell somebody that is a little bit scary. So make sure you're mindful. Mindful of that. And through that process, I think just understanding that life happens gave me the understanding of what grace actually looks like. And being mindful that I could not overwork myself trying to get to this, this box being checked when it really wasn't something that I was, honing in on.
Absolutely.
When it's finished in my own time, because it's my journey and I respect that process. But time management was my friend. I literally had events I didn't go to.
I've seen your calendar. You've posted your calendar before, and I'm like, how in the world does she keep up with all this? So I'm going to ask you the question that I hate. You know how you're like at a cocktail party and then someone comes up to you and they're like, so what do you do? So what do you do?
I love
because
that
you
question.
have all of this experience, from the educational standpoint. What do you do in your day-to-day work?
So I tell people when they ask me, I float between a business advisor and a business architect. I love that title. My mentor was the one who actually gave me that. He was like, because it encompasses all of what you do, from filling in the gaps to literally building up other businesses,
Right.
planning out what that looks like, helping them manage their day. And that's literally what it is. So with businesses, and people know me, I do not call small businesses small or micro. You're a business owner. When they are running into different situations where they are trying to figure out how to manage their business, how to reach capacity, that's one of my favorite words. That's where my company comes in, and I come in to assist them with that. Trying to get them to understand what an actual contract looks like, what bidding processes are in place, how to make sure that they're getting connected with the right people to go after those large contracts. What is SAM? What is GSA? How do I get certified? Those are huge factors that a lot of us, and when I say us, minorities or SWIMBIes as we're known, we miss out on. So when we have somebody that's at the table having those meetings, meeting those individuals face to face, and then bringing back that information to us, it's important. It's extremely important. So like right now, one of the big ones is with Lift Fund San Antonio, their African American Equity Fund that they're running.
Yes.
With the San Antonio Area Foundation and the Corporate Partners for Racial Equality based here in San Antonio. That includes the Spurs, Valero, all of these other entities. Those 18 African American firms are getting like a lot of hands-on information sessions, group sessions. They also got grants to help them through their business journey. And that beautiful program, I'm happy to be a part of it, and one of the leads on all of their sessions that they're having for folks like that. Yeah, so I love connecting the dots and filling in the gap.
And what I'm getting from you as I'm listening to you speak, you're speaking with so much passion, but you just rattled off like this list of, I don't know that business, and this is a good thing though, because you have so much information inside of you. I don't know that people in San Antonio even necessarily know that we have all of these resources for people who want to start their entrepreneurial journey. It is so intimidating, and the average person thinks, I need all this seed capital, I need an investor, I just don't have what I need. And then they take on probably what is too much personally.
Yes.
So I'm just curious, what would be one nugget of advice you would give someone if I came to you and said, I make amazing homemade Pop-Tarts, I don't know, I want to get started selling my Pop-Tarts. What would be, of course you can't give away all the goods because people need to hire you, but what would be the first thing that you would tell an entrepreneur to get themselves positioned to start on that journey?
I actually would ask them a question, and it's my favorite question. I would ask them, could you see yourself doing it every day? Because that's the thing. Could you see yourself doing it every day? And if that person response is not really, then their journey is going to be completely different. They would more along the lines maybe be a hobbyist and not something that they're actually wanting to do that is a passion project of theirs, right? And that's the difference. Somebody who, has a business and it's just on the weekend, or maybe they do trade shows, great, nothing wrong with that. But I think that that's completely different than somebody who is a more traditional entrepreneur, in the sense that literally they're starting at A to literally get to the point where it sustains their way of living.
Right.
So the conversation would be different. But that's my favorite question. And depending on how they answer, then the conversation takes on a life of its own. Because if they say, well, yeah, this is the game plan. I'm working full time now, but I need to know, what do I need to do so that I can do this full time? So I literally give them the guidance, what does it look like in the long run? What are some of the milestones? Where do you see yourself, 3 years, 5 years out? Do you have funding? Because a lot of people think that when you go after a loan, you could just walk in there and be like, show me the money.
No.
Do you have a business plan? I've actually had people tell me, I've never had to use a business plan. Like, do people still do those? Yes, they do. And do your research, right? Because that's another one. We have individuals who call and they have these great ideas, but it's not really going to take them $1 million to get started, like a t-shirt business.
Right.
It does not take you $1 million to start a t-shirt business, right? And then your credit, as crazy as it sounds, 5 C's of credit. That is so important as well too. So you have to have those foundational tools already in place so that when you are sitting in the room and you're having those conversations with these financial institutions, particularly for funding, and they literally asked you about your credit history or tell you they're going to do a credit pull, you won't be in a panic
Right.
or sweating when they
Yeah.
tell you that, because you're prepped and ready. So
Right.
I always tell people, before you jump all the way in, let's
your
make sure,
research.
yes, the foundation is set. Have you checked your credit? What does it look like? If you're potentially going to be looking for funding, because they're going to check it. If you are married, is the other individual going to be a part of the company? If not, then you need to make sure that that's put in writing. You need an operator's agreement. If you are, even if you
Right.
are married, you still need to have certain arrangements and things in order, because what ends up happening, because I've seen this, is businesses start and then they'll go an LLC, great, and then they want to get certified, right? And then on paper, the husband and wife are both 50-50, not realizing down the road when they want to get certified, you have to at least have one person that's 51%.
Right.
And then he's a veteran and then she's female, but they want to be veteran and female certified, and they can't.
Right. You have to
Yeah.
choose. Yeah.
So research is so important, because it's not for the faint at heart.
Yeah.
Yeah, so not for the faint at heart, and because it takes discipline to be an entrepreneur too. Whereas when you have mandatory hours, as far as like clocking in and out when you work for someone else, it's all on you. You can take days
It's
off.
like
if
the
you
difference
choose
between
to.
elementary school and college.
I'm just saying.
When you have someone telling you, okay, you have to
Yes.
sit here, now get this out, get your materials, go to lunch. And entrepreneurship,
Exactly.
you have to tell yourself.
You do.
You have to motivate yourself.
Yes.
You have to be disciplined.
Exactly, and that's why my calendar looks as crazy as it does, because I'm that.
You have that discipline.
Yes,
Yeah.
I do. Even as someone put in the comments, they were like, even your lunch is scheduled. Yes,
Yeah.
because people will literally schedule at noon because that's their lunchtime.
Right.
Their lunchtime, and they have
And you're like,
questions.
I gotta eat. Yeah.
Exactly. Sometime throughout the day, it's like I have to have some type of nutritional
Yeah.
supplement.
And no, entrepreneurs sometimes do forget to eat.
That's
We've all been guilty of that.
That is very true.
So this is all very, I would almost say like technical, but outside of your professional career and your education, I find you just very interesting. You're very unique, and I appreciate the fact that you, even though you're very personable and you're friendly, you kind of operate in your own zone, so to speak.
Makes sense.
And you have like these really interesting hobbies. So I am a fan of your garden.
Love
And
it.
it's so funny because I remember during the pandemic, people suddenly turned to plants,
Yes,
right?
they
And they were
did.
killing those plants left and right.
Yes, they were.
Because they didn't have the knowledge base. But you've created like an oasis for
Yes.
yourself. And what I'm hearing, because of everything that you've done and because of your scheduling, I feel like you probably did that out of necessity so that you have a place that is calm.
Yes.
And so I'm curious, like, what do you have in your backyard? Because I know there's species of plants that I have not seen before.
Yes.
And I know you have your, I don't want to call it a she shed, like your office essentially. How did you cultivate that space, and what's back there?
Yes, and that's really a good question. So I'm sure, because Mr. Wonderful is going to be like, I'm the ringleader, so I have to give
Shout out
credit.
to Mr. Wonderful.
Yeah, I have to give credit when credit is due. The greenhouse, as well as like the whole backyard, percentage-wise, probably like 99% of that is all him.
Really?
And as far as like the planning and selection of stuff,
So you got a plant daddy.
he
I
is
love it.
more of a plant enthusiast than I am. And
Really?
oddly enough, when we first met, literally flowers every single Friday, because I love orchids. I love
That's
orchids.
my favorite flower.
Love orchids, and I love pitcher plants. But he is the one that he is a enthusiast. Any type
Did
of
you say pitcher plants?
yes,
Okay.
pitcher plants.
Google pitcher plants, everyone. Okay, that's it. Okay.
Oh goodness, but he loves them, and so he's cactus, pachypodiums, just all different kinds of serapesias, which are fabulous plants from all over the world. We have in the backyard have a fabulous greenhouse, and then of course there's edible goodies back there, from the lemons, limes. We have a blood orange tree.
Yes.
She actually struggled during that wonderful snowmageddon that we had. We had
That was
actually, like,
completely unnecessary.
yes, it was, but she's still alive and she's doing great. The downside was that we had to what they call deadhead the top of it, right? But she's going to be hopefully she'll fruit this coming year. There are some kumquat tree that we have back there as well. We have a peach tree as well. Okra And right now, there aren't any carrots, but we've planted carrots before, black-eyed peas before, Brussels sprouts, just all kinds of vegetables.
Yeah.
But lately, especially with this crazy Texas heat, the focus has been on more tropical plants and not a lot of the edible goodies, because we found out the hard way that the wonderful I guess you could say neighborhood creatures loved our wonderful veggies as much as we did.
Oh, I'm sure. You've probably got like little rabbits and raccoons and all kinds of deer.
Cute, yes, little furry guys. We also have a cat that has just fallen in love with our backyard. He was actually born up under the she shed. So Mom and the other kittens have all disappeared, but he even has a name. Mr. Wonderful named him Moscato because of his beautiful eyes. So that is Moscato, and he is a black cat. How fitting.
I've seen him, but I thought I didn't know that he just sort of adopted you all.
He adopted us.
Yeah.
I literally consider him like my little spirit guide.
Well, I love black cats. Most people do not.
I love them.
I love them.
Yes.
For so many reasons.
Every single morning when I go out to the she shed and walks with me to the she shed. When I leave the she shed, he walks back to the house with me, and he holds like a full conversation, just meowing, just constantly. But he's adorable. But yeah, there's a greenhouse back there with all of our different goodies. There's a tropical side and a desert side in the greenhouse, and then there's the she shed that I actually run my business out of.
Right.
So yeah, our backyard, and it is because I've actually posted that on Facebook. We do call it the Oasis.
Yeah.
And Mr. Wonderful was actually out there watering right before I left the house today, taking care of the plants. But he is a avid plant enthusiast.
See, this whole time I thought you had orchestrated the whole thing.
He's bigger than me. Originally it was me, but he kind of just took over.
Yeah.
And I still do the ones in the house though. So those are still my babies. But in the backyard, it slowly trickled to now I'm just like, oh, so we got more plants coming.
Yeah. So we have to, shout out to Mr. Wonderful, and we have to talk about him because I found something out like literally minutes before we started filming that I did not know. And I think it's so important to talk about this. So as long as I've known you, I always thought you and Mr. Wonderful were married. First of all, I love that you call him that because I think it's beautiful and I think it's a wonderful way to pour into someone, But I always just thought you were married. And so I remember I was asking you just before the show, like, what is it? Like, y'all been together like 20 years? And you said, oh, we're not married. And I was like, can we talk about relationships that do not fall under what people consider the traditional and how that has worked for you? Because it is so obvious. It is so evident that there is love in your relationship, that you all edify one another, you all spoil one another.
Yes.
Like, I see it. What prompted you all? Was it a conscious decision, like we're just not going to get married, or has it just been something that organically happened? I'm really fascinated by this.
You know what? I would say that it's kind of a blend of both, if that makes sense. Because we've been together since '05, and oddly enough, we're not one of those couples where it was a topic of conversation. And as I mentioned earlier, I didn't have like a checklist of all of the stuff that I just had to do.
Right.
And our parents are, they're quite similar to us as far as, y'all are grown, whatever you choose to do, as long as both of you all are happy, we're perfectly fine with it. Now, my folks, they've been married for 39 years, and they'll be 40 next June, actually, for them. But yeah, with me and Mr. Wonderful, it's odd because I tell people all the time when they see us, it's been 17 years, and people automatically assume that we actually are married, and they're like, we had no idea.
Right.
I didn't know we had to announce it. As crazy as it sounds, but
because it's really no one's business.
Right.
But it is fascinating, and I can see why people want to know. Because anytime you see someone in love or you see someone that's happy, you kind of want to know, like, how'd you do it? What's the secret?
Right. And I think socially we've been like pre-wired and pre-programmed to automatically assume that that is where the goal line actually is. Right. And for me, I don't have a goal line, right? Everybody has a different journey. And I think with me and him, the beauty of our relationship is that we are both committed to each other. And the fact that we do not have any of these like boxes that have to be checked as far as individually or as a group, as a couple, makes it even better than what it already is. And I know one of the things that we actually had talked about a couple of weeks back was the first date that we ever went on. And he was like, do you remember remember when you asked me if I had any questions for you, my response. And I looked at him and I honestly remembered part of what he said. But in summary, his response was, no, I don't have any questions because it feels like I've known you all my life. That literally was our first date. We kind of just floated with each other and then actually had another date that same day afterwards. I dragged him to see Amityville Horror, the 2005 edition, because I have to specify which one. I'm a horror lover, y'all.
Me too.
And he is not. But do you know, I didn't know that. And he sat through that whole movie.
He was like, oh, this is really the one because this is crazy.
And I found it out afterwards. I was like, why did you sit through that whole movie? Because I loved it. He was like,
because that's not a movie for everyone.
No, he was like, I wanted to be next to you. He was like, that literally was the reason. The reason why. I was like, well, thank you. I appreciate that.
That's amazing. Well, thank you for sharing that with us because you didn't have to. But
No,
I really would, like, literally moments before the show, I'm like, what? I find it so refreshing that you have carved out your own path and are living life on your terms because there's so many levels to womanhood, and we get hit with those messages early. I remember being a little girl, and people are like, do you want to play husband and wife? Do you want to play? And I was like, I don't want to play any of that. I don't want to be anybody's wife. And I've actually gotten in trouble for saying, like, I don't think that that's necessarily a goal for me.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, it's considered like you're an anomaly. So it's just refreshing to see that you're flourishing, you're loved, you're supported, and even though marriage is wonderful, it doesn't have to be like the end all be all to have a successful relationship.
Very much so. Very much
now,
so.
how did you start calling him Mr. Wonderful? And does he have a name for you too?
He has quite a few crazy names for me.
Oh my God. Should we just leave it there?
Oh, Lord. But no, he has all kinds of interesting names for me. But interesting enough, first, let me tell you how we met, because that story is interesting too. And this is when I tell people this, they're like, wow. So back to Mervyn's. Working at Mervyn's at the North Star location when it was open, the district store. I actually went out to
Didn't they have a carousel out front or something? Did
yes,
I make that
on the bottom floor. But I think they got rid of it a couple of years like down the line after like Frost Brothers closed. I'm telling my age.
It's okay because I'm sharing the points of reference. I'm like,
Oh, goodness. But I was at that location, and one of the young ladies in the home goods department was actually having like a version of a panic attack behind the register. And I was literally coming out of the back area and asked if I could come find out like what was going on with her. I'm not for sure what happened with the actual manager that was on duty, over that area. So I went over to relieve her because she was crying. And what it came down to was that I guess her boyfriend broke up with her somehow or another. And so me and her were having a discussion and trying to get her to calm down. And I said something to the effect, because this was literally right when I was single, I said something to the effect to her that you can't expect like chivalry literally to just pop up out of nowhere. I was like, in some instances, chivalry might actually be dead. Who's to say that it is still alive? That was a conversation. She walked off and I covered her register. Well, lo and behold, he was one of the people that was in line when all of this happened. Every Friday after that incident, I started getting flowers delivered to that location. I had no idea where those flowers were coming from. And then finally, he showed up with the flowers and he asked me out. And the card said, now you know that chivalry is not dead.
Come on, Mr. Wonderful.
And we've been together ever since.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And what makes it even crazier is because in between time, he actually came in and shopped for some other stuff. He came and got some pillows.
He never said anything.
He never said anything. He was like, I didn't even need any pillows. I just came in and specifically looked for you, looking for some pillows. I was like, okay. And even further down the line, once we were together, we actually found out that we lived in the same apartment complex 2 years previously.
Okay, so
it was meant to be.
Kismet, absolutely.
It was meant to be. We never bumped into each other. Hello, anybody that might be over at Lincoln Green from back in the day. But yeah, we literally
I know where that is. Yeah,
we literally lived in the same apartment complex. Never saw each other at all.
That is
it's amazing. The most strangest thing. But yeah, and here we are. So,
Wow.
17 years later, I tell him I'm still crazy as I'll get out. He was like, "Yeah, so am I. We're crazy together. That's the beauty of
But
it all."
yeah.
I tell people we're a unicorn couple.
No, I can definitely see
Oh
that.
yeah, we love to cook together, garden in the backyard. My she shed was actually a gift from him as well, and he did like all of the electrical in it and everything. He loves just putting together stuff.
Right.
Great guy, all around guy on numerous levels, and that's how he literally got the name Mr. Wonderful, because he is. He's such a great guy.
Yeah.
Shout out to Mr. Wonderful. Love
No,
you, love.
I love that.
Yeah.
I really do, because I think we're getting
Oh my
we
God.
brought the producer to tears. Oh, I'm not supposed. Sorry, I'm not supposed to look over there. I'm supposed to.
But I normally would never say anything, but you know how I feel about love.
Well, yeah. So,
And black love in particular. And this is so refreshing to hear.
and that's why I wanted to talk or hear you talk about your relationship, because one of the conversations that my producer and I have very often, you know, there's something broken within the larger culture, of course, that trickles down to us.
I completely agree.
And there are all of these messages that men and women really don't need each other, that, you know, we're worthless, and that we're causing each other's existence to be even worse, and just all of this negativity. And it's very easy to get caught up in it if you're not careful. Like, I've had to catch myself a few times. I mean, I still think that women are superior, of course, but
I love it.
but you have to be you have to be careful and not get sucked into. So when I hear stories like this, it's very affirming, and it's just really beautiful. So thank you for sharing. Shout out to Mr. Wonderful for being dope. Shout out to you,
Thank you.
because you're amazing.
I love it. Can I say something about
Yeah,
what you
you can
just
say
said?
whatever you want.
I just want to say, I think some of what ties into that, outside of just societal factors, because everybody wants to have likes and just go viral and all of this other stuff,
Right.
which is a whole nother animal in itself,
Absolutely.
is the whole concept of trying to find somebody so that you can be complete. When people finally realize that they are actually a whole and complete individual themselves,
Right.
they will then be able to actually pour into others and have someone that complements them. You're already complete. You do not need somebody else to literally complete you. You're not 50%. You're 100% plus, right? And I
Speak
think
on
that
it.
that's something that people definitely have to realize. Mr. Wonderful is a great guy. He was a great guy before he met me.
Right.
He's still a great guy, and he's 100% complete. I'm a unicorn. I've always been a unicorn.
Right.
And I was 100% complete before I met him, and I'm 100% complete now. We
Yeah.
actually complement each other. And I think that that's something that has helped us in our 17 years that we've had together. We don't necessarily push each other's buttons. That's just not our thing. I don't pick on him for all kinds of just strange things, and he doesn't pick on me for
Right.
strange habits or stuff like that, because what's the point, right? That doesn't
Yeah.
get you anywhere when we talk about relationship building, when we talk about pouring into each other and realizing each other's worth. And I also believe that people need to realize that it's doesn't cost you anything to say thank you. Right? We
that's big.
automatically assume that in a relationship, people are supposed to just do A, B, and C for us because of their gender or the role, and I use that in quotes, that they supposedly play. He'll tell you, I have no problem going out and dumping the trash just because. It's like, I have no problem with it.
Right.
He has no problem going into the kitchen and cooking.
Right.
He has no problem with that. Like I tell people all the time, you gonna just go hungry until somebody cooks. What you gonna do? Not him.
Sitting around hungry, looking at each other.
He
Yeah.
will go in the kitchen and cook up something. I will come down, set the table, and very happily sit at the table and look cute and eat. And we can do the opposite and be perfectly fine.
Yeah, yeah. But no, I think that is very important for people to understand, is that you do what it takes to make it work.
Yes.
And you do what it takes to make it work for your situation.
Correct.
Sometimes, and that what that really takes is blocking out the messages from the world that say
True.
the woman's supposed to look like this, talk like this, do this, do this. The man's supposed to do this, show up this way. And if you allow all of that into your sphere, it's like an
Yes.
infection, really.
Yes.
So you have to maintain your own peace, your own. It's almost like having a little biodome
Yes.
that you have to,
Very true. And
keep pure.
Very much so. And I think also it comes down to people not expecting other individuals to fix them, right? Because I know that that's something that a lot of people will say, well, you know what, I was in this relationship and they didn't fix me. Yeah. And I'm like, what does that even mean? Because if we're not pouring in ourselves first, how can we pour into others, right? So you have to make sure that you take care of yourself and that you're well-rounded. No one's saying you have to be 100%, on your best, but you at least have to come to the table with something and not automatically push that on somebody else. Well, here I am, I'm broke, put me back together again.
Absolutely.
That person has things that they're working on themselves, right? And I think that that's something that individuals have to realize, that everybody has their own journey, and then when you actually meet someone, you build a journey together, but you still have your own journey. Like right now, I'm here with you all. He's at home, probably in the backyard, having a conversation with Moscato, or shopping for plants online. So we both, have our own journeys, and then we have a journey together as Shay and Mr. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Or he likes to call me Donde.
Yeah.
Donde.
I love
That's
that.
an inside joke, but don't.
Okay, I won't ask. I have a feeling. Okay, I'm just not going to ask. But that's really beautiful. Thank you for that, because we need more of this messaging in our community, just across the board. And what you said about just pouring into yourself, fixing yourself, taking time for yourself is so important. One of the things that I know that you do that I feel like it's part of your like wind down time or your relaxation is you create dolls and collect dolls. And for a lot of people, I think we're maybe similarly creepy.
I love it. My favorite time of year.
Most people are like, dolls, or, but, and the dolls are not creepy in themselves, but
Some
what,
of them are.
yeah. So what, most people think that that's something that like, little 90-year-old women do, which you are far from.
Far from.
Or they think that it's something that's strictly for girls, which is not true. So how did you get into that? And what type of dolls do you collect? And then I know that you also create.
I do.
So tell us about that, because I find it fascinating.
Thank you. Yeah, and this is actually something that me and Mr. Wonderful actually have in common. We're both collectors. So, like, he doesn't collect dolls. He is a huge Transformer and G.I. Joe fan.
Oh, wow.
And now plants, of course, particularly Serapedias from all parts of Africa. That's his thing.
Okay.
So on my side of the house, my collection, as you just mentioned, is dolls. So my mom is actually the one that started that. Since I was little, she has bought me dolls. And they're all black dolls. African American, beautiful babies, whether it be Barbie dolls, just random cute little Betsy Wetsies from back in the day, all of them. And so from literally walking until now, I've loved dolls. They've just encoded in me. So my collection, goodness gracious, I probably have over 200 Barbie dolls.
Really?
All of them are black Barbies. And then I have probably about another 100 or so just random collectible dolls from like Ashlyn Drake and some other doll vendors. And then I'm a huge fan of Reborn Dolls as well. And those are like those wonderful babies that actually look like real babies.
Yes.
I've actually taken to actually making those, and that's a whole interesting fun process in itself.
I've seen them, and I almost wished you like congratulations one day, because I thought there was a real
You thought I had a baby?
I did, and I'm like, I missed that. How did you get into that particular type of doll?
So
because they do look alive.
And that's the interesting part. So with Ashton Drake, with their fabulous dolls that they have on there, they were really cute, but you could still tell that they were dolls. And then one day I actually was on YouTube looking for something else. I don't even remember what it was. And there was a young lady who was doing what was called a box opening of this doll from a African-American lady. Her name was Natalie Ferguson.
Okay.
And she opened up this box. I'm like, oh, there's a lady that makes dolls that's African-American. That evidently somebody knows, because this video has gotten over 50,000 views. So I watched it, and it was this beautiful reborn baby. So that was my introduction to reborn babies, because I was like, doll looks alive. That is creepy but beautiful at the same
Right.
time. So I went and I tracked down this designer or artist of this baby, and I've been in love with dolls since. The sad part about it was that she actually passed away, that particular designer, but it just opened me up to like a huge community of reborn artists, and I started following them. And then during the pandemic, I finally buckled down and purchased one because they are not cheap.
No, they're
They are not cheap.
Yeah.
But once again, you got to pay artists what they're worth, because you know they're
Absolutely.
doing
we
all
need
of
to talk
the
about
work.
that too.
Yes.
But go ahead.
So, and I purchased one, and I fell in love with her, Abby Shola. She has a name. Once again, me and Mr. Wonderful, we love Bob Hart's Abby Shola. So we took the character's name.
Are you saying Abby and then Shola, or Abby Shola like the Nigerian name?
The Nigerian name, Abby
Aha,
Shola. Yeah.
okay.
So, and we call her Abby for short. And
Okay.
then the little boy one, his name is Chewy, short for Chewy Mecca.
Okay.
Also a character from the show. And so all of the reborn babies have like names that we gave them. But those were the first two that we had. One, I purchased Abby from an actual artist. And once I received her, I literally was like, as always, I can do this too. And I just took to it, went on to YouTube and just started finding stuff, writing down notes, ordering different supplies. Once again, Mr. Wonderful, for my birthday that year, gave me a kit with a whole bunch of supplies. And that's where Chewy actually was born out of, all of the products and stuff that he actually purchased.
Wow.
And so now I just have a collection of them.
There's another sister. Oh, you know Laverne, don't you? Laverne
Name sounds
Witherspoon. She used to live here. She's in South Korea now. But she doesn't do the reborn, but she is an avid doll collector. I need to connect you all
Please do.
too.
Look, I'm like, please do.
Yeah, she's a Black woman. She's fabulous. She's a veteran. She's just done so many interesting things. But I thought it was really cool to know two Black women who do this, because it is kind of different.
It is.
And,
yeah.
you know, a lot of us have superstitions, and it's like, I can't have those dolls in my house. They're going to be getting
Yes.
up and walking around.
Oh, yes. Yeah, because during Halloween, I love to do the dolls in the hall, and people are sending me all these pictures, and folks are like, Dr. Robinson, please don't post that on your timeline, because I might have to unfriend you for the month of October. It's creeping me out so bad. But I love them. I have some one-of-a-kind dolls that literally the artist made, sent to me. Nowhere else in the world can you find them. Some of the babies that I have there. One of my uncles, all the way in Oklahoma, he sent me a box. I didn't even know what it was. I opened it up, and it was a doll. And he was like, I was in an antique store, and I saw it, and I thought of you, so I sent it to you. My sorority sister sent me a doll, and she also sent me like a bassinet. And Mr. Wonderful was like, I can deal with the doll, but the bassinet is kind of creeping me
a
out.
little bit too much.
It's
Yeah.
like that looks like it's been through some things.
Yeah, it's
But
got
the
some
doll
history.
thing- yes. I told myself, I think you might have a little empathic energy there, picking up on stuff. So
Well, and it's true. Sometimes when you get things from antique or vintage stores, you know,
Yes.
energy, everything is energy. So
Yes.
you do have to be kind of cognizant of that. And sometimes you have to like clear the space a little
Oh,
bit.
yes, ma'am.
I've had some interesting things. So yeah, but we could talk about that later. Or we can talk about it now. I don't know. But yeah, it's definitely, you can sense the history with certain pieces. And sometimes it's good, and sometimes you're like, no, I'm going to put that outside.
yeah, very much so. Or let
Yeah.
it stay on the shelf where it's at.
Right,
So,
right. Yeah. There's a group, I don't know if you're familiar with it. It's on Facebook, and it's called Weird and Wonderful Finds.
Ooh.
And people literally from all over the world take pictures of like these really odd and unusual things that they find. And they just post them and share details. And sometimes it'll just be like a cool outfit or like, you know, platform shoes from the 70s. But then there are things that are very unusual. And there was one lady that posted a mirror. And
you said enough right there.
we already know. You already know. And I remember thinking like, because she posted it and she was like, should I bring it home? And, you know, a lot of us were like, no. And she did. She brought it home, and she had to get rid of it.
Yeah.
I'm like, you have to be careful. But
Did you know that there's actually a site on Facebook? Baby Strange is one with all of the really cool strange dolls. But then there's strange and unsettling toys. So if you actually receive a toy, regardless if it's a doll or whatever the toy may be that's unsettling, you send it to them and they will actually rehome it. Yeah, they'll rehome it for you. And they've actually made a business out of it. And I love that. They literally take on like haunted toys and toys that have strange energy.
And that's great because you're not just dumping stuff in landfills. Because some people don't mind that energy. Some people don't. They're like, bring it on.
Exactly.
You know, I know people like that. I'm like, that's a lot. And I'm not going to your house. I love you. I'm not going to your house.
Like, just meet me outside in the park.
Yes. So what other, I'm curious. So I know you're really into gardening.
Yes.
And you love plants and flowers. And then you have your dolls. Is there anything else that you do? Because I'm really fascinated by the ability you have to create, you know, just this balance for yourself so that you can have peace.
Yes.
Is there anything else that you do to pour into yourself or to...
I love to read. When I can find time, and people always like, well, how do you find time? Okay, this is interesting. So one of my self-cares that I do every single week is at minimum twice a week, I take a fabulous spiritual bath. Like, there is no option for that. Mr. Wonderful would tell you like clockwork that it is on, literally, it's on program that is going to happen at a minimum twice a week. And during that time, 9 times out of 10, there is a book that is in my hand that I am enjoying. Black Women's Guide to Yoga and Yoga History was the last one I just read, and it's like 400 pages long, but I loved it. Just a whole bunch of really cool information about women who literally look just like me, who I had no idea had any attachments to yoga, but and it's so deep. When you hear yoga, people are like, okay, it's yoga. But for those that know, you know, there is a lot of spiritual attachment revolving around yoga and the energy that is like literally manifested from it. So it was really interesting to see, you know, Pam Grier and Rosa Parks and all of these other wonderful women that we're very familiar with on the private side that actually participated in this and the history that's attached to it. So that's the last book I just read. And what am I reading now?
That was actually going to be my next question.
I was like, actually, I don't think I've cracked open another book after that because I literally just finished that one
400 pages is
on Monday. I take that back. I actually read Fahrenheit 451 again.
And I think you said something about it, and I was like, and they need to read 1984 immediately after.
Oh, goodness, yes.
Because, so here's a question. I'm curious. Kind of related to that. And if anyone is not familiar with the book, Fahrenheit 451, it's by Ray Bradbury.
Yes.
It is a classic. It is somewhat prophetic.
Yes.
Very profound. And I also highly recommend 1984.
Yes.
Read those two books together or in tandem or one after the other. How do you deal with the social and political climate that is like swirling around us right now? And
because it's a lot.
It is a lot. I don't even know how to phrase the question. Like, I'm trying to get it out and I'm like, there's just so much. Do you participate? I mean, and we don't need to do this now, but do you participate in political conversations with people, or do you sort of prefer to just keep those things to yourself? Because, you know, we are gravely affected by so much of what is going on. How do you deal with all of that? It's a lot.
It is. It's a lot. I think one of the big things with me is I've learned to not necessarily absorb, all of the energy that comes from it, because some of the stuff that's out there is just mind-boggling, to put it lightly. Me and Mr. Wonderful, we always have conversations when we're specifically in the kitchen. That's like the area where we are always at together, cooking and having conversations. But we'll talk about all of the craziness that's happened like throughout the day when we're both done with work. And he's like, "Did you see what was reported?" "Oh, yes, I saw what was reported." "Can you believe?" "No, I cannot believe it." And it literally turns into a rabbit hole conversation about how it all ties together and just how deep it actually is, you know, stuff that's going on in other countries and how that affects us here stateside in the United States. And the Sleeping Dragon that finally opened up is like, we kind of called that about 5 years ago. So, and being able to have those conversations. But I think something else that's really neat is being able to have those conversations and respect the other person's opinion, because not everybody's going to agree, with you, which is perfectly fine, or with me, which is perfectly fine. But the appreciation that you get from the conversation, because they may actually say something where you pick up on it, you're like, never really thought about it that way.
That's something that is very valuable to cultivate, the ability to I don't even want to say debate, but to have a conversation where you don't agree and respect the other person's, not only their position currently, but their experience, their life, their conditioning, all of the things that help them to arrive at their stance or arrive at their viewpoint. And I'll say from a personal standpoint, I'm very opinionated. Anyone who knows me knows that. But I've really had to, in recent years, learn how to sometimes just take a step back and say, okay, Kirsten, maybe you didn't consider this. So I applaud you for seeing that, especially like within a relationship, because sometimes the people that you're closest to are the ones that you really want to have the tug of war with. And it's not always, the healthiest. So
True, very true. I know sometimes we finish each other's sentences. He's like, yeah, we've been together too long.
Yeah.
But I think I'll keep you for another 70 years.
And 17 after that, and 17 after that.
I love it. But that's very true. But I think that's important. And a lot of times people don't do that, and it's needed. And as you mentioned, with family, friends, not even necessarily on different political sides, like people you've never met, just on Facebook, just keyboarding it out.
Right.
Just people in your own home. It's like, have you had a conversation with them lately?
Yeah.
So it's interesting to watch.
So, I thought he was giving us the signal. Yeah, darn it. So I wanted to quickly, you were telling me, this is like a hard left. You were telling me, because I know that you all like to travel together.
We do.
And you were telling me just before the show, we'll kind of wrap it up with a trip to New York you had.
Gosh.
This is so funny to me. Like, I was giggling and I had to compose myself. Tell me about your first trip to New York and what ensued during this trip.
A lot ensued on the trip to New York. But the one I was actually telling you about was we actually got the Metro card.
Right. Which is so brave.
Yes. Okay, so the little Metro card gets you on and off of everything. The subways, buses, trams, all that good stuff. So we decided that we was going to hop on the bus and go through Brooklyn at night. And so we was off the beaten path. Asked me to do that now. So we was just minding our little business, enjoying a little bus ride, checking out everything. And the crazy part about it is that this was right when they started instituting the stop and frisk. So we actually saw that. So that was interesting to see firsthand as well. Yeah. But at one of the bus stops, the door flies open. There's a whole bunch of people just standing in the middle in front of the bus, but it was actually also a bus stop. This guy hops on with a stroller with a baby, probably like this big, maybe 5 pounds, a newborn baby, and he just walks over to me. He hands me his baby. He's like, here, hold my baby. And he hops off the bus and he hits somebody, and then he breaks up another fight that's happening, and then he hops back on the bus. You think he came and grabbed his baby? No. He literally sat down in front of us. He drank something out of a little Solo cup and took a little drag off of his cigarette. And I'm looking down at this cute little chocolate drop of a little boy, and I'm like, you are absolutely adorable, but I am not your mama. Whose baby is this? Yes. I had to get up and hand him his own child bag. It's so you just gonna let me keep your baby?
But I think, and I wanted to end with that because I think also that's classic, I've spent so much time in New York that I'm this is completely believable. I can see it play out. But also I think it's just a testament to who you are, that someone handed the baby to you and not someone else. You are, and I'm just going to give you some flowers because I believe in doing that.
Love it.
You have such a warm, engaging, personable disposition. And I truly believe that although you have all of this education and you've put in years of work, I think that your success as a person has a lot to do with just your spirit and your heart. Yes,
and you're the first person to tell me that. I receive it.
Yes, it is yours.
I love it.
So thank you so much. We got the signal to wrap up. So I just want to say thank you so much for taking time out of your day. I feel honored that I got one of those slots on your calendar because I've seen how crazy it is. So thank you so much.
Thank
and we'll see each other soon again.
Yes, same circles.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
If you will look into the camera here and tell everyone where they can find you if they need your services, because I am sure that there are people who out there who do need help.
Sure. So if you are looking for me, fabulous Dr. Shantana Robinson, you can actually find me on my company's website. And the company's name is MFAD, which stands for Management for a Day. And our website is management4aday.com. Email and all of that is there. And there's also a wonderful chat box where we can instantly respond to you. Hope to hear from you.
Thank you. And this is horrible, but I know we're not off the air. I gotta go to the bathroom.
Oh.
Somebody